Good evening, citizens of the internet. We hope you are enjoying this beautiful Tuesday evening, October 27th, and we welcome you to the Norwalk Gamer Symphony Orchestra Twitch channel. We're gonna have
Welcome.
so much fun tonight. Woo! My name's Mary. I play the flute, and I like to hang out and listen to some tunes and play some cool games. And I am honored to be here for a cool switcheroo episode of Choose Your Character, in which the host and interviewer is about to be interviewed. So
Right.
please welcome Mike, our guitar player. Sup,
Hi,
man?
everyone. Hi. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good. Happy it's Tuesday. It's not Monday, which means we're almost through the week.
That's right.
And
That's one way of
I
looking
can
at it.
I can see the weekend from here, so it's gonna
It's
be good.
within view.
Yes. Yes. And this is very exciting. You have talked
Yeah.
to so many of us, and now we finally get to learn a little bit about you.
Yeah, I finally get to tell you guys what real good music, good video game music is. I'm
And
kidding.
instantly,
I'm kidding. I've loved every
instantly
piece we've talked about, but I also love the pieces we're going to talk about later.
insults us instantly. That's the Mike I know.
I've
All
been
right.
waiting for this moment for 3 months.
And
No.
I've been waiting for this moment to ask you the first question.
Yes.
What is your name?
Well, as you introduced me, my name is Mike. Um, Hi, yeah, my name's Mike. As it
You're doing
says,
awesome.
as it says under here. Look, I thought this was a weird question to lead off with since I wrote it. So now I'm being asked it, and I'm tearing it apart. I just
Well,
anyway.
well, good news, you're killing it. First
Yes,
question, A plus. Let's just move on.
it's in the
So,
past.
yes, as we can see next to your name on the screen, you have your gamer tag at Ganon11. Would
That's
you like
right.
to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I am Ganon11. I actually had a couple other usernames that I used to go by. A very old one that I won't share, just because I don't need to share it. For a while, I went by Nacho Cheese, which was awesome. I'm really happy with the username Nacho Cheese. But eventually, I decided that in some places I was Ganon11, and in some places I was Nacho Cheese, and I just needed to consolidate behind one username. And Ganon11 was the oldest one, so Ganon11 is what I went with.
You
Uh,
should have combined them and been like Cheesy Ganon or
Cheesy
something.
Ganon. Well, that's just who I am. Is Cheesy Ganon. The reason why I picked Ganon11, and actually Ganon11 is the oldest username I have. I just kind of went through this long journey to get back to it. Is if you couldn't tell, if I haven't talked your ear off about this already, I'm actually a huge fan of the Legend of Zelda franchise. Um, One of the first Zelda games I remember playing a lot was Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. And in that, one of the cool things I noticed is all the bosses have these like surnames or sort of titles. So the first boss is like this spider called Goma, but when you fight it, you get a title card, and the title card doesn't just say Goma; it says the parasitic armored arachnid, Goma. And then later you fight the evil spirit from beyond, Phantom Ganon, and yeah, that's cool.
Hmm.
But then you get to the very end of the game, and you fight the very last boss, and the title card simply flashes in little caps Ganon, as though he like defies classification. And when I was 13 and playing that game for the first time, I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." And if I'm honest, I'm 31 years old, sitting in this chair and thinking, "Whoa, that's pretty cool."
Pretty
Uh,
metal.
so Ganon, pretty metal indeed. And so that's where Ganon comes from, and then the 11 is just from the fact that my birthday is the 11th of May, and so it's probably going to be impossible to get Ganon, just plain Ganon, as a username anywhere. But Ganon11 is usually unique enough that I can snag it. And
Nice.
also, I have this note here in the agenda. I like to kind of put on the persona of being like an internet version of Ganon, like I'm an internet villain. Uh, but I'm not actually a villain. Actually, behind the scenes, I think I'm a pretty okay guy. And so I'm not Ganon. I'm Ganon11. Although people,
Alter ego.
yeah, that's right. But
Nice.
I respond to Ganon as well. So that's a little bit about my gamer tag, my handle.
Cool. Always good to know. Yeah, there are some really awesome, like, defining childhood video game moments, and I think what you just talked about, even the most simple things, like with the titles of the enemies, that's just so cool,
Yeah.
and I hope the game directors know that while they're painstakingly thinking about every little detail, it actually matters. To 13-year-old Ganon, it mattered, and to 31-year-old Ganon, it mattered, so that's super cool.
Yeah, I always wonder if that's something that they, like, made a really thoughtful decision to do, or if that's just like an afterthought. Like, yeah, this is the parasitic
Oops.
armor arachnid. Move on. But
Yeah.
I thought it was meaningful, so I latched onto it.
Cool. And I kinda spoiled the answer to this one in my introduction of you, but I didn't spoil it
We'll fix
fully.
it in post. It's,
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
post
on
processing on
this
this.
live. What instrument or instruments do you play?
Yeah. So when I was let me talk about what I play, and then I'll talk about some of the other instruments that I've played in the past. For
Cool.
the orchestra, I primarily play the electric guitar. I have also been known to play the acoustic guitar for the orchestra. Uh, Probably less common than that, I sing. I provide usually backup vocals, but occasionally lead vocals. And then maybe less often than that, I'm in the back. You know, there's no guitar part, there's no vocal part, or there's like a call for a female vocal part. So I go in the back and I hit things. Um, I provide backup percussion. In the past, when I was in fourth grade, actually, I think I mentioned this maybe last time when I was interviewing Vincent. But when I was in the fourth grade, I picked the cello to try and learn, and I played the cello for about a year, you know, through all of fourth grade.
Mm.
But I was the all right. This is gonna sound like a brag, but it's actually me criticizing a part of my character. Um, we were given this like practice booklet to practice and to learn from. And you know, I remember at one point we had just covered the first two pages of content. Like it was really basic stuff, like here's how you find the notes, here's where you put your fingers to bow these notes, you know, play
Mhm.
these simple patterns. And I had enough natural talent that I could burn through that much content in my daily practice in like 5 minutes. But my parents and my teachers and everyone were like, you need to practice for 30 minutes. I was like, I don't need to practice for 30 minutes. I did it all. I'm done in 5 minutes. Why can't I move on? Why can't I go play video games or whatever?
So you got bored?
So I got bored with it, and I just
Oh
didn't
my god.
practice. And then starting in fifth grade, things got weird with like scheduling. I didn't know when I was or was not supposed to go to instrument rehearsal. So like it it was a bit of natural talent that led to the character flaw of I am really bad at practicing, which has actually followed me through. So I haven't played cello for 20 years. In when I was 17, I got an acoustic guitar for my birthday. Um, Frankly, because my older brother had been playing guitar for a little while, and when I was in middle school and high school, I was still pretty much just like, yeah, I'm gonna do what my older brother does because we're so similar. Um, so you know, I got an acoustic guitar and I started learning to play it when I went to camp the next few summers to be a camp counselor, and then played it with a religious club, with a Christian club in college, and have kept playing that since. So I at least kept up enough rehearsal to keep playing the guitar for all this time.
So you started at, like, 17, that's considered kind of late in the game, that's cool.
Yeah, um, yeah. I was kind of old, I guess. Um,
Yeah. No, but see, everyone, it's never too late to pick up a musical instrument.
it really
There's something
isn't.
you wanna play, go for it.
It
That's
really
my
isn't. And
PSA.
I would actually like 100% back that up. Um, Speaking of kind of picking things up from scratch, I also started to sing only when I got to college. Kind of out of nowhere with really no choral background of any kind. Someone in the summer before I started college said, Mike, you have a nice singing voice. You can join an a cappella group. And I said, okay. And I joined an a cappella group. And,
Yes.
and so, you know, for 3 years of college, I was singing with this a cappella group. And that's really where I like really solidified my ability to sight read and understand music and music theory as much as I can. I'm still, a fairly beginner on all that stuff. But that's, if I got any formal music education, that's where it was. It was in college with singing.
Cool. Yeah, the power of compliments.
That's right.
You have a,
Yeah.
you have a great singing voice. So awesome.
Yeah.
And we are so happy that you are using those talents at the Norwalk Gamer Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
So, how did you find the Gamer Orchestra? Which is a funny story.
Yeah. So this is kind of a funny story, which I may have told people beforehand, but never on a public forum. So I'm sure people are familiar with the sort of origin story of the NGSO. If not, I can give the quick rundown. Um, Brian is our president. He founded the orchestra in 2016. He worked at the same company that I do and that Sam does, and that many other of our members have and still do work at. And he sort of put out flyers in the kitchens and stuff, recruiting for the orchestra, saying like, "Hey, I need nerds who play instruments to come play music from video games." Uh, and at the time, I was not very confident in my guitar skills, but I was fairly confident in my singing ability. So I signed up to be a vocalist. Um, and I showed up to the first handful of rehearsals. Um, but as I'm sure many people are aware, uh, there's not that much, relatively speaking, there's not that much video game music that features vocals. And of the repertoire that we started with, I think we had maybe 5 or 6 pieces, and of those, one of them had vocals. So I was only really involved in one of these pieces, and this piece was, I think, the main theme from the game, The Wonderful 101, The Wonderful 101, which actually is a really cool piece. I didn't pick it to share here tonight, but everyone should go listen to it. The vocals it features is for like a full chorus. So like soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and lead vocalists or sort of featured soloists within each of those parts. And I was the only vocalist showing up at that time. So it became this like really daunting thing for me where I was like, I don't know. Like at the time, I think I still needed more direction and more attention to be able to figure out what should I be singing at what points, which of these parts is important, and then learning those. I needed sort of like dedicated time to that. And
Mm-hmm.
Brian couldn't give it to me, and none of the other people could give it to me because they were all learning the piece themselves. Um,
Right.
so it wasn't really sounding that great from a vocal perspective. All the instruments sounded awesome. But from a vocal perspective, it wasn't sounding great. And so I kind of got discouraged and I stopped attending after probably 3 or 4 rehearsals.
Oh no.
Zoom forward 2 years or so, maybe less than that. Maybe it's a little bit more than a year. But Brian and I actually end up in the same small crew of people working on singing the national anthem for our company's softball game. So it's been a tradition at these softball games at our company to sing the national anthem beforehand. I had been singing it alone for a few iterations. And Brian reached out and
Ooh.
was like, I want to sing with you. I think, I have this really cool 4-part barbershop-ish kind of arrangement of it. Can I sing it with you if I bring 2 other people? And I said, yeah, sure. Um, and so we started rehearsing for that. We started practicing that, and kind of in waiting for one of our performances, he was like, "Hey, remember when you came to the Gamer Orchestra? Why'd you
Guilt trip.
stop?" Gave me a little bit of the guilt trip, and I told him the story that I've just told you all. And just in talking with him, and then sort of thinking about it myself, I realized that in the period where I had been missing, what if other vocalists had come in? And what if other vocalists had had the same experience of like, well, I'm the only vocalist, and the only pieces we can do call for a full choir, so I'm going to stop attending. And I realized like, well, the only way a vocal section is going to take hold is if someone just goes and sticks with it. And so I said, all right, I can go, and we still have the same problem of not many of these pieces feature vocals, but I'll play guitar. I need to get better at it anyway. I'll play guitar. And I started
Nice.
attending, and now I play guitar primarily and sing secondarily and hit things
You're a good guy.
ternarily.
You're
Um,
not Ganon, you are Ganon
that's
11.
right.
You
So
got it.
so
You got
technically,
it.
I'm a founding member of the NGSO. There was just a lapse of a year or more, um, but here I am.
Yeah, and now we've got, like, how many? 30 members strong? We're killing
Yeah,
it.
a lot,
Probably more.
and a lot of vocalists, including you, including Lexi. Um, Sam in the chat provides vocals. There's a bunch of people who provide vocals at times. So, we don't exactly have a full blown NGSO choir, but we definitely have the building blocks there. So,
Doing fine.
yeah, we're
We're
doing
gonna get
well.
there.
Yeah.
Neat. All right. Should we jump into what the beginning of, I guess, the meat of our discussion where we talk
Mm.
about music and video games?
I
And
love
why
music and I love video games and I love meat. So let's do it.
Mwahaha, let's go. So, in turn with the other interviews and the structure that we have been doing, we ask the musicians to list out some of their favorite video games. Not necessarily the songs, we'll get to that later, but their favorite games that either they just love to play or had a big impact on them as they were playing them. So, Mike here has a wonderful list for us, and we would love to run through it together.
Yeah, I actually have a big list. I'm cheating because I'm the one that normally runs this show. So I added a couple more. But I promise
You
I
deserve
kept my
it.
music selections to 5, so I'm not cheating. Um,
Cool.
so we talked about it up top when we talked about my username. It's still true. I love the Legend of Zelda franchise. I've loved it since I played the first game when I was like, well, played my first Zelda game at like 11 or so. When we got a Game Boy, it must have been earlier than that. I must have been like 8 or 9. But we got a Game Boy and we played The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. And then we got Ocarina of Time, and from there I was hooked on Zelda, and I've now played every game in the franchise. I'm involved in a charity group called Zeldathon, which plays Zelda games and raises money for charity. Um, I have all kinds of Zelda related decorations around, most of them off screen. I named my username Ganon11. I love Zelda. And my
Oh,
favorite Zelda game is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the latest one. Sam and I kind of talked about that on our interview, but the short version is Breath of the Wild was really cool. And between when it came out and for like, from there to about 3 months later, I sunk probably 200 hours into playing that game. And oh, it was good. It was a really good experience.
coolest part about you listing Breath of the Wild is that you grew up playing Zelda. So you have, besides playing the games 100 times and loving the games for years and years, you have a lot of nostalgia
Mhm.
stored into those games. And Breath of the Wild is still your pick, which I think just says a lot for that title.
Yeah, it was a really really enchanting experience. And I do have to say that like we're comparing my children, we're comparing my babies here. So even to say one is my favorite is almost insulting the rest. It's like if Breath of the Wild is a 10 out of 10 game, the worst that a Zelda game gets is 8 out of 10. Like they're all setting a really high bar here.
Right.
But Breath of the Wild is probably the top for me. Who knows? Maybe the next one to come out will top that for me. Who knows?
Mm.
Next on this list, I kind of cheated and I said Metroidvanias.
You
Um,
did kind of cheat. Yeah.
but I could talk about the whole genre here. So if people know me and people talk to me and they talk to me specifically about video games, they learn two things. The first is that I love Zelda, and the second is that I love Metroid. I just don't have a Metroid related username. Um, I started playing the Metroid series in I think 2002. I think that's when Metroid Prime came out. Um, and I played Metroid Prime, I played Metroid Fusion, and from there I just played the rest of the series. And I grew to really love that genre, and how it's defined by like improving the character. So the character always starts out as kind of a weak version of themselves, and then you find things that improve your maneuverability through the world, or your ability to deal with different enemies, or traverse different environments, and so on. And so when you start super weak, but by the end of the game you're just tearing through stuff. and that's a really satisfying gameplay experience that every Metroid game repeats. But then some other games repeat that as well. So I listed Hollow Knight, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Um, Ori and the Blind Forest, and then Ori and the Will of the Wisp are also very good Metroidvanias that I've enjoyed. Those are kind of the top ones that come to the top of my mind is the Metroid series and then those couple indie games.
Cool. So
Um,
it's kind of more of an upgrade system. As you go, you get more and more, and
yeah,
then
things
you
like
rock at the
you
end.
jump higher, or you can run faster, or you can deal with hot environments, or what have you. Um,
You can deal with it when it's hot.
that's right.
Yeah.
You get some water and you learn to hydrate or something. Who knows? Um,
Very cool.
The next one I listed kind of on a whim, maybe to represent like first person shooters in general. I listed Mass Effect. The Mass Effect trilogy was a really cool first person shooter RPG that I played through,
Hmm.
and a really good semi modern now example of like story based games, where it was just really
Right.
cool exploring this world, exploring these characters, um, and sort of seeing what happened. I've really loved Mass Effect. I haven't played Mass Effect Andromeda because I heard it was crap, but eventually I'm sure I'll get to that and really enjoy it. And then there's Lexi mentioned Halo. I love Halo. I played through most of the Halo games. I love for a long time I loved Counter Strike and Overwatch and a bunch of other first person shooters. And a little bit later down the list, I have the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Those are really really
Yeah.
satisfying shooters. But I will talk more about those during the music section.
Right. But now it's time to get a little seasonal. You like
Yeah,
some spooky games. Woo!
that's right. So this Saturday is it's Halloween this Saturday. So I had a section on here. I didn't think about this when I was planning this, but it's very topical. I do like the occasional horror game. And
Not
usually
me. I
yeah.
would never take you as a horror guy. I'm just like non-horror games scare me. Why would I want to play a horror game? It seems crazy.
Yeah, it's really weird. It has to be a certain type of horror game. I really like horror games where you can fight back against whatever the scary thing is.
Mm, cool.
When there's a feeling of powerlessness, I really don't like it, except for the last entry on this list. So let me get through the list. So in the
Okay.
vein of shooters, I listed Dead Space 2. I think Dead Space 2 is just a fantastic action horror game. I think it does a really good job of being scary beyond just like jump scares, beyond stuff like, oh, I popped out of nowhere and made a loud noise, but like actually being kind of psychologically scary.
Hmm.
Um, but to talk about why is a real spoiler. So I would suggest everyone play through that game and just remember the phrase "make us whole" and why that like still creeps me out to this day whenever I hear someone say that. Dead Space 2 was a fantastic game. Dead Space 1 also a great game, and Dead Space 3 we don't talk about. um,
Got it.
then I listed the Resident Evil series, which runs the gamut of scary to not at all scary. Um, that I feel the more I think about the Resident Evil series, the more I think they are B movies in video game form. And sometimes I think they're fully self-aware of that, and sometimes I think they're not fully self-aware of that. But those are really interesting games, and actually, like even within that series, there's several different kind of types of games that they represent. But so far, I've liked them all. So Resident Evil is really good.
Are you
Um,
getting a new one? Village, I think.
yeah, if it comes out for PC, I'm gonna get it, and I'm probably gonna be really scared because
I was gonna say that looks very spoopy. I
yeah,
don't know.
Resident Evil 7 is probably the scariest game I have ever played. I remember I played that on my stream, and I could only play it for 90 minutes at a time because my heart was just beating too fast. I had to like
Ooh.
end stream and then just sit like, okay, all right, it's okay. Uh, which
De-stress. Make
which
some
is
tea.
it was a really good game. I can't tell you why I enjoyed playing that game. I can just tell you that it was really enjoyable.
Mm.
And then the last one in this sort of mini section is Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which is the only horror game I've played where you can't really fight against the monsters. So the mechanics in that game are you need to the only thing you can do against monsters is hide in the darkness, and then monsters can't see you, and so they pass you by, and then you can keep moving.
Mhm.
But the longer you spend in the darkness, the more you lose sanity. And as you get less and less
Okay.
sane, your vision starts to get blurry. You start seeing monsters where there aren't and stuff like that. And if you go too far insane, you die. So in order to counter that, you need to stay in the light. But monsters can see you when you're in the light. And this sort of back and forth tension made it a really, really exciting experience. Alongside just like kind of exploring and solving puzzles and uncovering this really cool
Right.
story. So I thought that was a really cool experience, even though you can't do anything against the monsters.
Is it more of like a mystery game or is it kind of an escape situation? Are
Um,
you trying to figure something out?
I would say it's a little bit of both. As you may be able to tell from the name of the game, you the character begin with amnesia. Um, and
Spoilers, come
and
on.
actually one of the first things you find is a note you have written to yourself that says, I know you don't remember anything, but trust me, trust what I write because I'm writing this to myself. My name is Daniel. You need to kill this person. You need to go deep into this mansion and kill this person. And I can't
That's
tell you why
cool.
because it's too horrible to conceive. You need to kill this person. And so
Not a game for me.
it's sort of like a reverse escape. So you're
Cool.
not escaping from this mansion or castle. You're kind of going deep into the heart of the castle. And the more you go, the more you learn. Like, oh yeah, this person that I want me to kill is a really bad person and kind of needs to die. Um, but it does kind of function like an escape room in some parts. Um, so there's some like discovering stuff and there's some
Mhm.
escape room stuff. And just in general, the Dark Descent was a really, really satisfying gameplay experience. Then the sequel
Super
came out.
interesting.
The sequel came out, and they did away with the light and sanity mechanics, and I was like, oh, so there's no point. Like that was the interesting thing. But oh well. There's a new one that just came out last week that I still need to try.
Okay. Is that the third then, or have there been more in between?
I think it's just the third. I want to say the developers behind that series have made additional games, but not in the Amnesia franchise. So they've
Right. Oh,
been
cool.
titled something else. So a couple more on this list. Mountain Blade Warband slash Bannerlord was a game that I was sinking a ton of hours into when I put this list together. Those are fun sandbox games. They're kind of a medieval, low fantasy to if no fantasy kind of genres where you pick up a sword, you pick up a shield, you try and hire some randos off the street and say, all right, we're going to be a roaming band of mercenaries. And you
Mhm.
can kind of do whatever you want. I found those games really fun. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is a turn-based strategy game with really good music. We talked about nostalgia before. I have huge nostalgia for this game. It's an old game. I think it's late '90s, and I remember
What
playing
system?
for the PC. Um,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, a computer game. I don't think they've ever made them for any consoles, but I would be
Hmm.
interested to see if they ever made them. Um, and yeah, that's a very high fantasy turn-based strategy game. I love playing that. Not very good at it, but it's got really good music. It's got really good. It's very good. It's very fun. It's kind of janky, so it has kind of this like warm nostalgic place in my heart. I remember playing that a lot with my brother, and despite like I really love all the music in that game, but I think my strongest memory is muting the music and listening to U2 while playing it. I
Oh,
don't know why, but that's that's the
it
memory.
was the 90s.
It was the '90s, yeah. Downloaded like 3 U2 songs off of Kazaa or whatever it is, uh, and listened to that instead of generic Snow VGM number two. Um,
Funny.
Doom 2016, Doom Eternal. Those are great games. Great, just adrenaline pumping games. But I'll talk about them later in the music section. The Tomb Raider games, starting with the 2013 reboot, are really interesting adventure games. Those are the kind of games that I just load up. And like main quest, schmain quest. I'm gonna go collect all the things in the past 5 levels. Just like a very relaxing
Nice.
experience. And then I thought I'd list Chrono Trigger because Chrono Trigger. I played a lot of JRPGs, but Chrono Trigger is maybe my favorite that I've ever played. Um, it was nice. It was simple. It was straightforward. It was solid. Everything it did well. And the music is great. The music is great. So
Cool. No complaints there.
yeah,
Everything was great.
just everything 10 out of 10. Very good game. Also, it looked
Yeah,
like Dragon Ball.
I've been wanting. Yeah, right. I've been wanting to get my hands on that game. I've never played it, but as a Final Fantasy fan, I have been told repeatedly to put it on my list. I mean, it is on my list. I just don't have access to it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
one day.
there's a Steam version. Batulafo says you can borrow my copy. He all but forced his DS copy on me when I played that game. But I didn't take him up on. No, I
Oh,
did
it's
take him up
for
on
the
it.
Game Boy?
So it's for the Nintendo DS. Well, okay, it was originally for the Super
Cool.
Nintendo. Then they ported it to the PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then much later, they made a Nintendo DS version, which Batulafo claims, and he has good reason to claim, is the definitive edition, is the best version. And there's also
Okay.
now a PC version, which I think is a port of one of the mobile versions, which has then had some patches to, I think, bring it up to speed.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
But if it came out for the PlayStation 1, when I get my PS5, I can play it on that. Oh, wait, there's no backwards compatibility. Ah, funny.
Yeah. I would I would
Ha
I
ha
would jump
ha.
on that bandwagon of making fun of PlayStation for that, but Nintendo's honestly not that much better in terms of backwards compatibility. Um,
Yeah,
Nintendo, get your stuff together. I want a sane virtual console. Anyway,
we're coming for you.
the Norwalk Gamer Symphony Orchestra Choose Your Character series is punching up.
Man. All right. Well, those were all good games that I've heard of, or if I haven't heard of, the Amnesia one sounded super cool. So it's always good to still it's a horror game. I'm still not gonna play it, but it sounded really cool.
Oh,
So
it's really scary. Actually, I don't know if I can strongly recommend.
yeah. Hopefully, you've inspired other people to kind of check out some new titles. Always good, especially during quarantine. It's the one legal thing we can do. We can all play video games.
That's right.
Go team.
It's very easy to social distance when playing video games, especially Amnesia. No one's gonna watch over your shoulder for that.
Built in.
Yes,
Social distancing built into that game.
that's right.
But all right. Should we listen to some tunes? We are the
Yeah,
orchestra after all. Let's
yeah.
jam.
All right. So I have picked out a selection of 5 pieces of music. I brought myself to the same limitation as everyone else. I tried to cheat actually for this first one. So the first piece of music we're going to listen to is from Castlevania 3. This is a track called Beginning. I tried to find composer, but composer and sound engineers were listed together. So the composers slash sound engineers are Yoshinori Sasaki, Jun Funahashi, and Yukie Morimoto. Let's listen.
Cool.
We can fade it down because it's just going to loop from here. This
Very
is
cool.
Beginning from Castlevania 3, and this specifically is the version for the Famicom disk system. It came with an extra sound chip in it called the VRC6 chip. I wanted to get the NES version of this, which doesn't have that special sound chip, to kind of talk about the difference. But when I downloaded the NES version, for some reason it wouldn't play in my streaming software. So
okay.
we're just listening to the Famicom version. I actually haven't played Castlevania 3.
I was to say I haven't played the Castlevania games, but I know this song. So
Yeah.
That's funny that you say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
I've played Portrait of Ruin, which is a Castlevania game for the Nintendo DS. But I have not played this game. I just know this because, well, frankly, I think I learned about it first because Bit Brigade covers it in their Castlevania album. Bit Brigade, for those who are unaware, is a local to the East Coast kind of metal band that plays video game covers as the soundtrack to someone playing the video game live. So, you know, it's 2 guitars, a bass, and drums, and their heavy air quotes lead vocalist who is playing the video game. And so you can see them playing Castlevania live in the background as the band plays the music. It's super cool. This song translates super well to a metal song. It just sounds great. And I really like this. I wanted to bring this because, first of all, it's really high energy. It really kicks you into gear for the first level. Sam pointed out the grooving bass. I love the bass line in this song. But I also wanted to bring it as an example of 8-bit music, like NES or Famicom music, which always has such banging bass. It's so good. And I'm always super impressed with how good they can make music on these, what I consider old systems, or classic systems. And I know there's older systems than the NES and the Famicom, but this is retro to me.
Oh yeah, no, this totally counts, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, musically, there's a section about 25 seconds in where it does this like syncopated off rhythm like triplet thing, which I think is the coolest part of the song. But I just love that there's like a legit intro, and this is overall about a 50-second loop, which is pretty long compared to some other songs. So there's a lot of stuff here.
I love that it starts and it's high energy and you're going and you're chilling, and then it just goes into this like halftime just because it can.
Yeah.
And it rules. So good.
And then it kicks it back up for a section to get back into the loop. Yeah, this song is really cool.
Gotta love the 8-bit stuff. It's such a cool thing to look back on and see how far we've come, but also not that video game music is better now. It still rocked, but it was just, it was in this kind of weird technological times capsule that we don't really see much anymore. So it's really great to go back and re-listen to those old tracks.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see a lot of people trying to, and in many cases succeeding in sort of recapturing the feel of this music when they do like chiptune arrangements. But even those, you know, usually the chiptunes that people make are like full songs. They're 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long. They're basically like if you were writing a modern piece of music using 8-bit instruments, which is a cool idea in itself. But the whole idea of like, you know, we only have this much disk space.
Much space.
You know, you have to fit your cool song into this much disk space with these sounds, and like that crunch of limitations leads to music like this. Like this song doesn't sound limited. It sounds
not at
awesome.
all. Yeah.
So, yeah, 8-bit music's cool.
Very cool.
And I know a lot of 8-bit music from the Game Boy. I haven't played a ton of NES games specifically, but this is a really good example, and I thought I would share it because it's a good start to a video game, and I think it's a good start to this section.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as the host, I made a mistake. You introduced the music. That is not your job right now, sir. You are the interviewee. No, that was on me. I should have stepped up. I failed, but I'm here to do it this time.
I figure I'm the one that's actually pushing the buttons to make it work.
I know.
But
I'm really just a figurehead. There's nothing going on here.
Well, as just a figurehead, I will not take your ceremonial duties from you. I will let you take us from here.
Yes. Well, our next track is from what Mike said, one of his favorite games, Hollow Knight. This is Nightmare King. Also sounds very seasonal for right now. And it is composed by Christopher Larkin. Take it away.
Here we go. That's about a minute and 30. Even though we're at a great part, I have to fade it down.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to any of this before because I wanted to have genuine reactions. Okay. That was dope.
Yeah, so let's talk about Hollow Knight. Because I kind of glossed over it earlier because I knew I'd be spending time here to talk about it. Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania, which starts very unassumingly. You are a white bug. And that's what you know of the story, is you're a white bug. And through the course of the game, you, like all Metroidvanias, you gain new abilities, and, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. And you also uncover this really interesting story of this kind of dead kingdom that you are bringing back to life. There's a super cool story tying everything together that I would really like people to discover on their own, so I won't talk too much about it. Other than just to sort of praise in generic terms, this is a game that really rewards you the more time you spend in it. So it doesn't come out and present the story to you on a silver platter, but if you start digging just a little bit, you will find basically just hidden treasure troves of information. It's really, really cool, very, very meaningful, very heavy, and just, it's good. It's good in a lot of ways. This song, in particular, plays as the final boss fight in sort of a side quest sort of sequence. So, eventually, during a certain part of the game, you find a thing, you hit a thing, and this sort of haunted circus comes to the main safe town, and the person who runs that town, whose name is Elderbug, is like, oh, that circus is really creepy. And you go in and you find, for all intents and purposes, Dracula. Everyone in this game is a bug, and so you find basically Bug Dracula. He has a high cowled cape that it curls around him. And he talks about, you must participate in my ritual. He doesn't have that accent, but I gave him that accent because he's totally Dracula.
Yes, it's seasonal. We're good.
Yeah, his name is Grim. And so basically the whole side quest is like, retrieving flames from around the kingdom and bringing it back to him, and then you dance with him. And the dance is, of course, a boss fight because it's a video game.
Yeah.
There are two versions of the boss fight. One sort of regular, and then one much, much harder. This is the song that plays during the harder version. It's a rearrangement of the theme that plays during its normal boss fight, but everything is just a little bit more unhinged. We talked about, someone was talking about the choir stings in this piece, and especially during that part, I think there's a real sense of how, like, things are coming apart at the seams. Like, one wrong step and this evil power that you're fighting is just going to spill out into the world. It gives me the feeling of like running downhill, which is
yes, one visual I got from listening to it that I wanted to say was I kind of got the sense of like spiraling down.
Yeah.
Like getting just like unhinging and kind of getting sucked in like this downward movement. So running down a hill, I totally get that. That was like we're on the same way.
That sort of feeling of like you have to keep your legs moving as fast because if you try and slow down, you're going to trip and stumble and snowball. Is kind of the feeling of this boss where you're like, I feel like I could slip up at any time, but I just need to keep dodging. I need to keep dodging, keep getting in these hits in. This boss fight was incredible. It was also incredibly frustrating. So this was the first boss that I needed to...
It's really hard.
Yeah.
I heard this game's really hard.
Hollow Knight is very hard. I think... I actually do want to talk about this a little bit. I think, just like I said, it's really rewarding story-wise the more time you spend on it. I think this is a cruel but fair game. In that every boss fight is difficult, but manageable. If you spend enough time trying the boss, learning the boss's attack patterns, figuring out your own abilities and your own movement, and developing a strategy, you can tackle any obstacle that the game throws your way. And you're going to feel really good when you do so. There's many examples of this. I think the best example is a fight called the Mantis Lords. But I'm not sharing the music from the Mantis Lord fight. I'm sharing the music from the Nightmare King Grimm song. This boss fight, for a long time, was the boss fight that took me the longest to tackle. I remember I was playing this game on stream, and I spent essentially one entire stream, 2 or 3 hours, just trying this boss over and over again. Basically, like, try, die, try, die, try, die. Rearrange some of my power-ups, maybe this will work better. Try, die, for at least 90 minutes, if not more than that.
Wow.
Just over and over before I got him. But I got him. And so...
exactly, and then you feel like you're the king of the world.
Yeah. I still can't beat this boss a second time. I don't think I've ever beaten this boss again. But it was just super cool, and this music really, really helped. I think musically I probably prefer the first boss theme, but that's not as good an experience to talk about. So I brought this one.
Okay, then why did you... But I got it.
Yeah. I also think this one is a little bit different from some of the other tracks that I'm going to share, so it provides a little bit more variety.
Cool. Yeah.
Hollow Knight,
nice.
Hollow Knight, good. Play Hollow Knight.
Yes, it's a really awesome, epic, heavy piece. Heavy without being like unbearable, because that's something with video game music. Like, it can't be too overpowering because you still have to play the game. Mm-hmm. And be successful at it. So finding that balance of portraying this weight and still having it be manageable, I think this song does super well. It's very cool. I will be listening to the full thing after this.
Heck yeah. It's very good. I would lend you Hollow Knight, but I bought it on PC. So I can't lend it.
And I'm very bad at video games, so if video games are hard, I will not be able to. I cannot beat Ori and the Blind Forest on easy. So that's where I am at my life right now.
Fair enough.
Yes. All right, going back to another game that we previously discussed. Excited to hear this. I actually know this song, but I will pretend I don't, so I can react genuinely. This is from Chrono Trigger. Very, I say popular. I don't actually know, but since I haven't played the game and I know the song, maybe it is. This is Secret of the Forest, and it's composed by Yasunori Mitsuda.
Here we go. That is a minute and a half of Secret of the Forest from Chrono
Cool.
Trigger, composed by Yasunori Mitsuda. Gosh. So,
What a mood setter.
what
Like,
a mood setter.
way to set a mood, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned when we were talking about Nightmare King that a piece needs to not be so powerful that you just stop playing the game because it's that good. Which I thought was funny because that's exactly what happened when I was playing Chrono Trigger for the first time. And I entered the first forest and this song played. I literally put the Nintendo DS down. I was like, nope, we're listening to this full thing. Because
Nice.
holy cow, is this a moving piece. It's in a way it's simple, although the more I listen to it, the more I realize there's like 3 or 4 different parts to this. It's cool. It's a really good mood setter, like you said.
Yeah. Can you like paint the picture for us? Because from not playing the game, what I was picturing from it, the name being forest, I was thinking of like the Macalania forest from Final Fantasy X, which is kind of this dark but a little sparkly forest that you kind of have to tread through to get to this big lake in the middle. And that was just kind of my mental image while listening to it. What is this forest like for people who haven't played it?
Yeah, so I think this plays in a couple different segments. The one I remember is from the very, very beginning of the game. You start in a small city. You go to basically a county fair, and then get sent back in time. I'm giving you the very Cliff Notes version. And the only thing you can do once you find yourself back in time is go to the castle. But in order to get to the castle, you must go through the forest that surrounds the castle. And this plays in that forest. And it is, it's sort of a misty forest. It's not very big. I think it's 1 or 2 screens big. But this music plays. And I actually think it's almost bad how early this plays. So, my experience...
It's almost bad?
So, let me explain. So my experience with Chrono Trigger, I knew the music of Chrono Trigger. I knew most of the soundtrack of Chrono Trigger before I picked up the game for the first time. Because I started getting into video game music, partially through the NGSO, partially through just my own experience. And Chrono Trigger, if Chrono Trigger the game is not very popular, and I think it is, but if its popularity is here, Chrono Trigger's soundtrack popularity is just miles and miles above it.
Cool.
Everyone talks about Chrono Trigger as like one of the pinnacles of video game music soundtracks. And so of course I listened to it. And as you might be able to tell from the first 2 songs I shared, and maybe the last 2 songs I'm going to share, I like the high energy, adrenaline kicking music. I like getting amped up. I like getting hype. But this song stopped me in my tracks because of just how beautiful and mysterious it was.
Music, that's so cool.
It's so music. And so I knew going into this game that this piece of music was going to be my favorite piece of music in the game. And so, me playing the game, first of all, it was a fantastic RPG. It stands on its own merits. It's a fantastic game to play. But a lot of the experience is me being like, oh, hey, that's where this song plays. Oh, hey, that's where this song plays. I can't wait till I hear this song. And this is the one that I was looking forward to the most. And it shows up 20, 30 minutes into the game. And so that's why I say it's almost bad. It's almost a crime that it shows up that early. But I think that's more of a me problem for just really, really liking this piece of music.
Very specific experience, but we understand.
Yeah. Gosh, this is so cool. And I wanted to talk about this and a little bit the next piece. As an example of, I guess what I would consider groove-based music. There is a melody here, but I think the cool thing to me about this piece is not the melody, but sort of all the harmonies and the groove that goes into it. And it's exactly what you mentioned at the beginning. It's a mood setter. It does such a great job of setting this ethereal mood.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost feel like when I listen to this, and when I listen to another piece that's very similar to this, is My Quiet Forest Home from Octopath Traveler. It's
Yeah.
almost like I'm transported to another world. So I'm starting to think that the two themes of video game music I like are super high adrenaline hype music and forest music. Just if it's music that plays in a forest, I'm gonna like it.
You are such an isekai. If it transports you, you like it.
I love it. ReZero, not ReZero. Any other isekai.
No, not ReZero.
All right, this is not an anime podcast, but
Yes, my bad. I couldn't help it.
That's okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Speaking of moods, how about we change it entirely and completely to the next song?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I want to let everyone know that in the agenda that Mike wrote, in all caps, it says volume warning. So you, my fellow viewer, have been warned. Join us for Doom Eternal. The song is called Meat Hook.
Yeah,
And this is by Mick Gordon, and let's go.
Let's rip and tear, everyone. Alright, so that is a minute and a half of blood pumping, adrenaline surging, demon killing Meat Hook from Doom Eternal.
Very similar to the last song.
Yeah, very similar.
I can really hear the same motifs. It's fascinating.
So what I want to talk about the similarity is the fact that this is another example of really groove-based music, right? Mm-hmm. There's not so much a melody here. There's just a mood, and it's a very different mood, right? But I think it's also really effective at what it's setting out to do, which is provide this really high adrenaline, super high octane soundtrack to a really exciting demon killing, ripping and tearing experience.
It doesn't even sound like a video game song. Like that could just be an instrumental metal piece, like hard rock. Because I listen to that stuff like on my own, in my own time, not video game or anything, just instrumental rock music, and that could totally be something that would come on my shuffle. It sounds really great. I couldn't help but smiling when the weird like melodic voice came in, like the it sounds like people screaming.
Yes.
While you're murdering them. I was laughing. It's so good.
Gosh. So, Doom Eternal, as you may be aware, is the sequel to the 2016 reboot of the Doom franchise. And they're first-person shooters. They are kind of known for just being gratuitously violent. The catchphrase is rip and tear. Rip and tear until it is done. And that's what you're doing. You're not just killing some bad guys. You are ripping and tearing. And that's just such a fun, visceral experience if that's the kind of thing you're into. And I'm into that. And the soundtracks do such a good job of just keeping you going. I actually think the two games are very different from each other in one aspect. In Doom 2016, they pretty much hand you a shotgun, usher you out the door, and just say like, "That's my baby boy,"
Yeah,
and
bye.
you just kind of sweep through the enemies like a like a broom through a pile of dust or something. Like nothing can stand in your way. And then Doom Eternal kind of makes it a strategy game where you're constantly thinking, I need to take that thing out before he can deal enough damage to me. But in order to do that, I need to take care of this first. So I have to get there. So I need to make. You're just constantly thinking. And so I think the soundtrack does a really good job of keeping you on top of your game, like keeping you sort of at the edge of your seat. Like you're always thinking, what do I have to take care of next? When can I chainsaw something? Do I have enough ammo to deal with this? Oh gosh, there's something right behind me, and just like keeping you going, keeping you going, keeping you going. It's awesome, and it's metal. It's metal. It's metal. It's metal.
Yes.
Yeah, we're having a metal choir here sing to us "Rip and Tear."
Oh my gosh. It's cool because it seems like the game is very almost sensory overload.
Yeah.
And another thing that makes video game music so great, it can't be too overbearing, but it's also something to fall back on because it loops and you hear it all the time. So it kind of gives you like a sense of orientation sometimes when you
Yeah.
everything's going on. At least there's that constant rip and tear, literally playing in your head, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and it's a very cool piece. I've never played the Doom games, but for the gore factor, when I was a kid, I did play some. Wow, did you see the title "Leave My Brain"? Well, Gears of War.
Gears of War. Yeah.
Yeah, the chainsaw gun was probably the closest I'll get to the rip and tear experience. It was pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
I mean, I haven't played a ton of Gears of War games. I watched someone play the Gears Tactics, the game that I think came out this year, which was a like XCOM like tactical shooter in the Gears universe, and it was very gory. It was very over the top, and I was like,
Yeah.
I could get into that game.
Yeah. I played the first one, but then I couldn't play the second one because it was too scary.
Too scary.
You kill guys and they don't stay dead, they come back up, and that was too scary for 8th grade Mary, so she never went back.
That's fair. I can tell you these Doom games are not scary, or at least not in that way. They're just adrenaline pumping. Doom 3 is scary, but that's its own game.
I could deal with straight gore. Another one for the list.
Yeah, do you just want to like? I feel like there are some games. So if you just want to kill 1,000 dudes by mashing the A button, you got to play like the Dynasty Warriors or the Hyrule Warriors games. If you want to tear a demon apart with your bare hands, you got to play Doom Eternal. It's the quintessential experience. And if that's not attractive to you, Doom is not the game for you, and that's super okay as well.
Yeah. If you prefer your demons whole, you may want to pick a different game.
Patch them up and push them to the side.
All right, we are on our last piece, which is a little crazy, but it is a majestically wonderful piece. We kind of went nice full circle. We started with Ganon, and we're ending back with the Legend of Zelda franchise. We have right here the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, the 2019 version, and we have the credits song called Staff Roll. And this is by Ryo Nagamatsu.
Here we go. Indulge me. That was 1 minute and 50 seconds of staff roll from the 2019 remake of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, composed by Ryu Nagamatsu.
It's hard to fade that song out.
Yeah.
Because it constantly changes. I feel a little sad, but it's a 9-minute song and we can't listen to the whole thing. But listen to it on your own time, because a lot happens in it and it's really good.
Yeah. When this came out to today, I think this is my favorite piece of video game music. I can't express how much I love this piece of music, but I'm gonna try, because that's what interviews are about.
Hey.
I even have in the notes, the first bullet point here is, I'm gonna cry, just let it happen, and I'm crying a little bit. So I mentioned before that the first Zelda game I played was the original Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. That's the first video game of any kind that I can remember playing. And I remember playing it to the ground as a child. I don't remember beating it as a child, but I remember just playing it over and over again, basically getting to the heart. Oh, this is the best part of the song. Okay, anyway, we must move on. I remember getting to the difficult part of the game, which is the 7th level, for anyone who's played it, Eagle's Tower, was too much for, elementary school Ganon 11. But it became part of my soul. Every piece of music in this game became so deeply ingrained in my psyche. Fast forward to 2019, and they remake and re-release the game on the Nintendo Switch with completely redone music. Well, I say completely redone. One of the things I love is that they directly quote the original 8-bit versions of these songs. So you heard it in 2 different places in this one, in the snare drum leading up to the main swell, and then that section I said was my favorite part, are the original 8-bit sounds from the Game Boy. And to me, that really symbolizes how much this remaster project was a labor of love for them. I can especially tell that in the soundtrack with just how much care they put into it. I love this piece. I love all the pieces in this remastered soundtrack. I think they're all great, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. I love this one because they do such a good job of featuring different ensembles. They sort of pass the main melody off between different groups. And every time I listen to this, I can just imagine us doing it in the orchestra. And whoever's up front doing the NGSO staff role, pointing out, now the woodwinds are going to play, and that's Mary on the flute, and Rachel on the flute, and Sarah on also the flute, and, and just passing it off to the different sections. I love this piece. It's very meaningful to me. It's very swelling and adventurous. I think it's a perfect capstone to this game. And it makes me cry every time I listen to it. So what more can you ask for music?
Understandable, especially we were talking about nostalgia. Like, you have this game that is just so deep inside you. It's kind of like me with Kingdom Hearts, which, if anyone knows me, yeah, we know. And then years later, getting it wrapped up in this beautiful package, in this beautiful medley where it hints at the past but also has re-orchestrations and just gives it to you, like mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. And then especially, I mean, Legend of Zelda, the music is such, it's so famous. It's a fabric of the game. Like, people who haven't even heard the franchise knows the melodies from this game. So just going back and revisiting those, especially for a game that was so important to you in a specific part of your life in 2019, where it's just like, oh, by the way, you didn't ask for this. Weird flex. Okay, here you go. So cool.
Yeah. I came out in September. It was still my birthday present. I don't care.
There you go.
Gosh,
yeah.
This soundtrack was great. This soundtrack was great, and I had a very similar experience to what I talked about in Chrono Trigger. Where I was like, I can't wait to hear what they do with this piece of music. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, I can't wait to hear what they do with the next piece of music. Oh, it's great. It's just awesome.
The best Easter egg hunt ever. You just find things and love them repeatedly.
Yeah, man.
So good.
Yeah, that's the last piece of music that I wanted to share. I could share excellent music from any of the games I talked about up top. I thought of 10 to 20 other tracks that I wanted to share when I was putting this list together, but I think right now this is a good selection. I think this is a good variety of pieces.
You have rock, which is something very much a part of you because you play electric guitar. You have your mood setting pieces, and then you have your kind of full orchestration. So I think you covered all your. There wasn't a lot of castanets, but I'll let it slide. I'm pretty sure you covered all your bases.
You could replace some of the 8-bit sounds with castanets. Tick 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 tick.
Yeah. So funny. But anyway, you covered all your bases. It was a really awesome selection, and it was cool sitting here and listening through it with you. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for helping walk us through.
Yeah, and we are not done.
We're not done.
It is time for the Are you really a musician? Prove it section with the showing us your instruments to make sure you're not a liar.
It's a lot more pressure than I put on anyone. I'm just going to say that right now.
Well, petting zoo, prove you're not a liar. I'm leaning in on the drama.
Fair enough. So yeah, this is the section where I get to show you guys my guitar. So Ben is also a guitar player. Ben did like a super big history of guitar. So if you want something that's like super in depth, go watch his. But I figured I would show off my guitar a little bit. I'm probably going to when I play it, I'm going to mute my microphone and then unmute the guitar so you can actually get some direct sound from that. Mm-hmm. But this is my guitar. It is an electric guitar. It is specifically in the Les Paul model. Which is cool. It's sort of the name for the general shape of the body here. It's a very popular shape, maybe the most popular for just like your average guitarist. But I don't know enough about that to make that claim. I want to demonstrate how it works. So at a very basic level, you are plucking strings on this with either your finger or something called a pick, or I know the proper term for this, like a speculum or something.
I don't know.
But you use this to strike the string, which produces vibrations, which then gets translated into sound, because that's all sound is vibrations in the air.
Plectrum. We've got plectrum.
A plectrum
in the chat. Plectrum in the chat.
Very different. Plectrum. Okay. A guitar pick. I'm going to stick with that. In an electric guitar, you actually have electronic systems here in the pickups that use magnets, and no one knows how magnets work. Ben probably knows how magnets work. But it uses magnets to basically read the strings vibrating and then translating that through your, any guitar pedals that you have through your amplifier into sounds that come out the other side. But you are plucking these strings to create vibrations. You can change the length of the string that vibrates by placing your finger down on a fret. So if I play this lowest string, it plays the E just below middle C, I believe. And then I can place a finger down, for example, on the 3rd fret, and this changes it to the G below middle C. I don't know if that's coming through on the microphone. I know I have
Nope.
noise suppression. It's not coming through. It'll come through when
Yeah.
I can just unmute this now.
No rush.
So there's
There
your
it
low E, and then you can change it to a low G, and this of course works all the way up and down. Each of these metal bars divides the neck of the guitar into frets, and each of these represents a half step if I have this in tune, which I did right before we started. So the lowest note this can play is, as I mentioned, this open E, which is the E below middle C. I could also detune this by fiddling with the tuning pegs up here. And detuning basically just loosens or tightens the string. And so that change in tension changes how the string vibrates and thus changes what note it plays. So, for example, one very common thing you can do is detune this low E to a low D by tuning it down a whole step into a tuning called drop D. That's very popular with kind of
Classic.
basic guitarists in metal because it makes this a valid guitar shape. Literally just a chord shape, just putting your finger down. When you do that and you put your finger down, you can play the root note, the 5th, and the octave of a chord, which is a 5th chord or an open chord, and is used all over the place in rock.
Ooh.
For example.
I think I know that song.
Yeah, spoilers. The highest note this can play, so the highest note a guitar can play depends kind of on the neck and how many frets they put into the neck. So this highest string when open is an E, a high E. Then all the way up here, 12 frets down, which 12 half steps represents an octave, is an even higher E. And then F, G, A, B, C, D. So the highest I can play on this is a D, a very, very high D, I think. You can sometimes get more sounds out of it by continuing to fret further and further down, but it becomes more and more unreasonable as you do so. And then I can play a simple scale. Which I'm actually very bad at, so I'm proud that I got through that without messing up. So that the reason I asked people when I was developing this, the reason I asked people to play a scale was to kind of get a feel for how the instrument sounds. The interesting and fun thing about the guitar, which I don't think is unique, but I'm still going to talk about it as though it's unique. The interesting thing about the guitar is you could do all sorts of things to change how it sounds. There's a ton of effects pedals. You could even as simple as changing which of these magnetic pickups it uses. You can change what it sounds like. So that's the same scale, but using the quote-unquote rhythm pickup, which kind of gives it sort of a deeper, fuller tone, while kind of leaving off some of the higher notes.
To be honest, I didn't know anything about the electric guitar, apparently.
Yeah.
I was like, the guitar, you can hear it because it has a hole in it. And the electric guitar, you plug it in, and that's how you could hear it. I knew nothing about the magnets so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, magnets are crazy.
Yeah, very interesting.
I found a website once called it was something like electrical engineering for electric guitar players. And it was like, we're going to talk about all the engineering stuff that an electric guitar player might be interested in knowing. And I was like, I'm going to read this. It's going to be great. I opened it up and all of it over my head. I do not understand electrical signals and waves and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of complicated stuff going on kind of under the hood that make the electric guitar actually work. But at a very basic level, pluck string, get sound.
Cool.
Yeah.
Pluck string. Oh!
There's another Boston song. There you go. We were talking about Boston before we went live. So that's a little bit, that's kind of a selection of how this sounds. They have some effects pedals. I have distortion pedals mainly for playing metal, but they're very far away and I can't activate them. So just know that it is possible to get a lot of different sounds out of an electric guitar. Um, you don't always need to go buy a new electric guitar to get a different sound, although that can make a difference. Sort of the shape or material that the body is made out of, whether it's a solid body or a hollow body, can have an impact on it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it's very easy to fall into a rabbit hole of acquiring new gear to get new sounds. Uh,
Right.
there's kind of a trope of guitar players who buy one pedal and then the next step is they've bought 20 pedals, and it's just sunk hundreds and
Yeah.
hundreds of dollars into this. I don't have 20 pedals. I only have 4.
Pretty good. You have 2 for each of your legs.
That's right. Yeah. Um, that I was planning that way.
Nice. Well, what about your other instruments? Do you want to sing?
I don't want to sing because
Yeah, I get it.
just like Ben did with guitar, I think Lexi did a much better job of showing off. I'm
Vocals.
gonna say like the mechanics of the human voice. Lexi has formal education in this, right? I don't have formal education in this, so I couldn't hold a candle to her. But yes, sometimes I sing. Sometimes I provide vocals. I think the piece that I've provided vocals on most consistently is our Ori and the Blind Forest arrangement,
Yeah,
which
you sound great on that.
yeah,
Good one.
that's not even supposed to be a male vocalist. It's supposed to be a female vocalist. But when we did it, I was the choir, so I sang it. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoy singing the piece.
You sounded great on our Bastion piece too. Playing that in the orchestra made me buy the game, which I did not beat because I had too high expectations of myself and I put the game on normal instead of easy. So I
Uh,
never beat it.
I I should have listed Bastion and Transistor in my list of some of my favorite video games. I should have listed probably 50 more games in that list, but
Right.
Bastion is very special. Bastion also very guitar heavy soundtrack, and the newest game from that
Hmm.
company, Hades, is also fantastic,
Yeah,
and its soundtrack is very metal inspired. So I've been loving that.
right up
Yeah,
your street.
Phil Marsh is popping off about Hades, and yeah, I think Phil Marsh is one of the primary reasons why I now have Hades, and am playing
Cool.
through it. And I haven't beaten that yet, but I'm still working on it.
I watch you stream it sometimes. It looks really cool. Again, it looks like a game I would not be able to play, but that's what Twitch is for.
Well, you could play it. You could
Yeah,
play it. Anyone could play it, Mary. Anyone could play it. Not
that's true.
everyone could beat. I haven't beaten it either, so I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm putting airs on about. Um, but yeah, so I also have my voice, which you've heard all night. You've heard me talking.
Yeah.
I don't have
Check.
a piece prepared to sing. I as far as other instruments in this house, I have an acoustic guitar, which is going to sound very similar to this.
Yeah.
And I have a pair of claves, which are essentially wood sticks that you bang together to provide percussion. I got those. Actually, fun story about that. My favorite class that I took in college. I'm a computer science major. My career is software development. I write code all day. Um, and so in college, my focus was obviously computers and computer science. But my favorite course that I took in college was Introduction to Afro-Cuban Percussion, because it was an hour every week for a semester where I just, I dragged a big African drum down to the music hall, sat in a circle with 20 other musicians and our instructor, and we just jammed. We just jammed.
So cool.
And one of the things we took away from that course, we were required to purchase for like $10 or whatever a pair of claves, which is a very high pitched percussion instrument that's used in a lot of Afro-Cuban music. And so our instructor would always be the one playing the claves, and we'd be banging away on these
Yeah.
drums. And it was so fun. So I still have those. I still bring those into the orchestra to use. I think there's maybe 2 pieces we've ever used them on, but they are yet another percussion instrument, sort of a percussive option in our arsenal. And yeah, I don't think I've played the claves in the orchestra, but I bring the claves.
Oh, well, we're gonna change that.
Yeah,
Hello.
someone write me a clave piece. Write me a clave feature.
Yes. Oh, Music for Pieces of Wood. I think that's a Steve Reich piece. It's all claves.
Is it from a video game?
No,
Ah,
it, it's back from my chamber ensemble days. Haha.
chamber ensemble playing music that isn't from video games. Oh no.
It's just 4 people with claves, and it's like an 8-minute piece of people hitting claves. It's crazy. Um,
Is it good? Does it sound cool?
yeah, I mean, Steve Reich. I don't know how to say his name anymore. It's been so long. It's a cool piece, but my fiance was in it, and his part was just quarter notes for 8 minutes. Like everyone else had the cool parts, and he was just. It was rough, and it changes to time signature, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 for 80 measures, and then it's 1, 2, 3, and it goes back and forth. I'll
Mary,
put it in the Discord. It's
could
cool.
you imagine just hitting something on quarter notes for 5 minutes? Could you imagine?
Oh,
Spoilers.
spoilers!
As we're recording this, the Norwalk Gamer Symphony Orchestra is going to have its third virtual recital this upcoming Thursday. Mary and I collaborated on a piece. Spoilers. It's going to be awesome.
It'll be fine.
It'll be great.
So, but yeah, I guess we should wrap this up now that we've even put in a little cliffhanger for Thursday. Woo! Keeping
That's
it
right.
spicy here. Mike, seriously, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for taking the time for all the past episodes to set this up, to have your fellow musicians on. I think it's been a really great project. I think it's super fun to one get to know the other musicians, but also open our minds and broaden our perspectives to more games and more music, and to hear other people's experiences about music is really awesome and humanizing. So I want to thank you for kind of spearheading this project on behalf of the orchestra. It's really been wonderful, and we're happy that we're doing it.
Thanks. I've had a lot of fun doing this. And I didn't really know what I was doing when I started. But I hit the ground running, and I hope everyone has found this really fun, because I found it a lot of fun. Um, I think this is the eighth interview, so I was going to say I've now interviewed 8 people, but I've interviewed 7 people. 8
Hmm.
people have been interviewed. Um, and the list is still open. If anyone is interested, please go ahead and sign up. I will say right now, we don't have anyone else signed up, so for now this looks like it might be at least the temporary end of the Choose Your Character series.
Season
But
1.
for season, yeah, this is season 1. We're gonna change the opening and ending for next time. um, and we're gonna get some new people in. But yeah, if anyone is watching this from the orchestra and is interested in talking about
Do
video
it.
games with me for a while, go ahead and sign up. And if anyone else is watching this on YouTube, who is not part of the orchestra, and you are local to Norwalk, Connecticut, check us out. The website is down here. I'm mirrored, so it's the opposite side now.
You're doing great.
Yeah, check out the website, norwalkgso.org. You can find all sorts of information. You can find some history about us. You can find some of our upcoming events. You can find links there to our Patreon, where you can support us if you so choose. You can see past performances, and of course, you can see every entry in the Choose Your Character series on YouTube. Um,
Local, and you just want to say hi. We're very friendly, and we're a really awesome community. I love everyone I've met in the Gamer Orchestra. So if you just want to chill with some really cool people, hit us up. We would love to have you.
yeah, we cannot wait until it is safe and legal for us to gather in larger numbers and perform music together, and frankly, perform music for others. I think that's I don't think I'm overstepping my bounds when I say that's the most exciting part of what we do, is when we get to play performances.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Really, really
So
cool.
this is awesome. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, you will continue to have a wonderful Tuesday evening on this very spooky end of October seasonal day, since I really leaned on that for most of this interview. Um, Mike, thanks again. This was
Yeah.
bomb. And we will see you guys for potentially season 2
Season
of Choose
2.
Your Character.
Stay tuned, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.